Welcome to the Next Big Future YouTube channel. Brian Wang is the founder and almost exclusive content provider for the Next Big Future blog, which is the #1 science blog in the known universe, enjoying an average of over 1 million views per month. My name is Randy Kirk. Brian's been a frequent guest on my channel discussing issues generally having to do with Elon Musk's various companies. The world is going to change completely. And Brian Wang and I want to make sure that you're along for the journey on this massive, massive change. Why is the world going to change completely? You might think it's ChatGPT. No, it's all about the robots are coming. The robots are coming. Brian and I are both totally on top of this subject. It's something that we both are intrigued by and interested in. But Brian is bringing you the science side. Today, he's even going to bring you a little of the marketing side, and I'm going to tell him where he's wrong on the marketing, and he'll tell me where I'm wrong on the science. Anyway, Brian, as usual, we're going to jump into this, and you're going to be the guy that's going to tell us how it works.
That'd be great, Randy. So let me bring up something that a little deck I've created that will kind of like guide us through this. Okay, so there've been some key statements made, and there's also the stated actions that are behind what's going on here. So there was a big interview between Sam Altman, OpenAI CEO, and Bill Gates, Microsoft, ex-Microsoft CEO, and Microsoft funds OpenAI. Nadella, the current CEO, funded that was in that old intrigue over the last few months. So in that, half hour, 40 minutes that Bill Gates and Sam Altman were talking, Sam said some key things. He said that we must do this thing, this thing being doing AI to next level, super AI, and we must do AI with robotics. And he said that OpenAI has bought some robot companies. So they're getting into the game of competing against the Tesla bot in some way. And he said it's an unstoppable technological course that must be done. And I'll describe what that technological course is. And that it is too valuable. The AI, the Tesla bot, is too valuable. So he's saying he and Bill Gates and Microsoft will not stop, even no matter how it changes the world. That basically it's going to disrupt everything. They're basically saying, deal with it.
Okay. Is that what he was saying? Is basically deal with it. So
I'm basically, he said it in a more nice way, more philosophical way. Basically, he's saying, we're going to break the world, deal with it, fix it, because we're going to make too much cash. It is too valuable. I cannot stop.
Right.
No.
And we certainly can see where if in fact robots take over physical kinds of labor, and chat GPT or large language models or neuro-linguistic approaches to compute take over intellectual kinds of labor, that would be pretty darn disruptive. Now, yeah. I always like to look at it. My professor wife told me a couple of years ago when I was starting to get worried about all this, she says, how many farmers, what percentage of the population were farmers in 1880? I said 90%. She goes, yeah. What percentage now? Oh, 2%. So we have a funny thing that we do as humans is that when we have these kinds of disruption, which that disruption was probably historic, certainly at that time and maybe since, to go that radically from a 90% agrarian farmer where the population was farmers to almost none, there will be jobs. It'll just be something different, something new. So when he says deal with it, I think that's what he's saying. Deal with it. You'll find a way.
Well, he's also saying it's going to be so good. We've been making so much money, that things can be a lot better. But, things will be very, very different. We just don't know how. But the fundamental thing is for him is he's focused on, I must make this crap ton of money.
Right.
And then I can be charitable and figure out how to save the world after. Yeah. Okay, so it's basically the AI endgame. We're in the AI endgame. So this thing about Elon saying I must have 25% voting control, not necessarily have to have more shares, but voting control. That was again a tweet thing. Is basically how Elon, Sam, Nadala, they're viewing the AI, the super AI, as the infinity gauntlet, the thing where it's like the anything wish, it's the genie thing where I wish for things and then it happens. So an interesting, you can see what is the CEO, the wealthy person thinking about when they say AI will do something. So there's another short interview where Nadala, the CEO of Microsoft, went to a Bloomberg event and said, so they asked him, what do you think you can get from the AI? What do you get from OpenAI? And he said that, well, we might, again, paraphrasing me, interpreting what he's saying that Microsoft can break the monopoly of Google on search. Then, you can replace um, search, which Google dominates. He described the domination of it. He also talked about that you can look at this data-wise, do they have domination? Because VCs have a no-fly zone. They do not fund any new search companies because that monopoly is too strong.
Right.
They fund productivity software, which Microsoft Office has, but the monopoly is weaker than that. If you don't try and make anyway, so his wish is that he breaks that, and then he also talks about it replacing the Apple App Store. That right now we have thousands, 10,000, 100,000 apps, and that each person has dozens to hundreds of apps on their phone.
Right.
AI becomes a super app, the one true app. Again, One Ring. I think some science fiction stuff in there, right? Of like when it becomes your infinity gauntlet of like doing all that stuff and doing it better. You convert off of those separate things because the one thing will do it better. So again, it's his genie wishes are I crush Apple and I crush Google. So it's interesting that that is what he wishes for. But he did it again, said it in a very nice way, a very
Right.
business way, right? So and then Elon was saying that there's 10 times more resources going into this every 6 months. Whereas like people talk about the acceleration, the 100 times more money and resources going in. So 2044 will be a year of Humanoid bot and AGI and Tesla bot. And then every year thereafter will also be another year of breakthrough Humanoid bot because they're going to keep changing and getting better. So here we have Tesla bot and then Figure AI. Figure AI has $100 million on this thing. So the level of funding is going to rip higher, right? Because to be competitive on the self-driving side, a kind of adjacent area of AI, companies to be competitive dump $2 billion to $3 billion a year into it. Waymo, Cruise, the now bankrupt Argo, Apollo in China, they're all putting these multi-billion-dollar things. So we're at an earlier stage with Human and Bot, where several companies have $100 million. Tesla's put more in there, but we're going to go 10x, 100x, and it could happen. For Elon Musk, in 6 months we go to $1 billion each to be in the game. In a year, we're at $10 billion.
10 billion. Yeah. Wow.
So it's a rapid takeoff. So again, we're going to go over the humanoid bot race. Again, the proof of how much your Sam Altmans and Larry Page or whatever of the various companies are willing to bet on self-driving cars. They will bet even more on humanoid bot because humanoid bot is bigger potential than self-driving cars. The minimum antes are these multi-billion-dollar things. And the key on this chain of like more compute, more data, more energy, supply chain, those factors are big things, is to get the profitability piece in there. Once you get the profitability piece in there, where the more money I put into it, the more I get out.
Right.
Then it really starts, your flywheel is going.
Flywheel effect. Okay. Yep.
So who has leading AI? And I define this as large language model quality and monetization, right? So we can see who's putting the resources in it, because there was this little chart of like who was buying the H100 Nvidia chips,
Mhm.
in 2023. So you have Meta, Facebook at 150,000, Microsoft 150,000. Those companies are also selling some of that compute, for cloud. I mean,
Right.
maybe they all be using for their OpenAI project, but they're selling using a lot of Google at 50,000, but Google also has TPUs, their own AI chips. Amazon at 50,000, Oracle at 50,000. Oracle's interesting because um, Larry Ellison is the second biggest shareholder in Tesla. And he has said that he will devote resources from Oracle over to Tesla. And, there may be some financial compensation because, they're separate companies,
Right.
arm's length action, but his 50,000 are something that at least partially can be tapped into by Tesla. And then we have Chinese companies, and then a startup, 50,000, Tencent, CoreWeave, Baidu, a Chinese company, 30,000, Alibaba, 25,000, um, Anthropic, 20,000, TikTok, 20,000, 15,000 for Tesla. Um, so so there were 500,000 A100s and H100s sold in Q3, and the lead time is up to a year on these things. But so this gives you some raw approximation of the skin in the game. So something else is that these chips cost like $40,000 a piece, right? So maybe even more. And the H100 is 10 times, 11 times more than the A100. So that would mean that 150,000 chips at 50,000 a piece is, let me see, uh,
7.5 billion.
7.5 billion, 7.5 billion, right? So these are the amount of bets that are going into that. And then Tesla is down at 750 million in terms of its purchases of it. But then they also going for the Dojo
Right.
chips.
Right. $1 billion worth.
Right. And then if we're going 10x beyond this, so then H200, a double the power chip, comes in April. The B100, probably 5x, maybe 6x the H100, comes toward the end of the year. And then Nvidia will be making two new chips every 6 months, presumably doubling or tripling capability every year, and also getting more energy efficient. Because a large factor of this is energy efficiency. Because Elon was talking about a gigawatt factory AI compute cluster in Kuwait in 2025, using 700,000 B100s, which would be the equivalent of 3 million H100s.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So 3 million H100s, it's definitely in the range of $100 billion project, right?
Wow.
And he also in that thing mentioned that there was another like half gigawatt thing. He didn't say where, and then other ones in the 100 megawatt range. So those are basically $10 billion, $50 billion projects that are happening, right? So for people, yeah, Nvidia is a good stock to invest in. And the other thing is that when you invest in it, they're basically obsoleting their chips. You put in your $100 billion in 2025, they'll have three more generations of chips by 2027.
Yeah.
So then you got to like replace all your B100s with Z100, right? Z500s, right? You have to replace your chips every 2 years, right? Because this arms race does not stop,
Right.
right? You have to keep going. As oh, I made my GPT-4 good enough. That's all you need, GPT-4. You don't need GPT-5, GPT-6. You don't need that. So the competition will keep going, and the
Sure.
money and will keep going. So the people who say, "Oh, Nvidia, I'm not going to give a good multiple because we're not going to need more chips," right? And also the Tesla, they make Dojo chips that could be end up being as good as Nvidia chips. Not like there's a shortage. Not
Right.
like people must have more chips, right? So that is something where um, if Tesla gets their Dojo chip going,
Mm-hmm.
there is a demand that is um,
Insatiable. Yeah. Right.
20 times, 100 times as big as their own demand,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Even though they're trying to do insane things, everyone So OpenAI, Microsoft, and the large language model thing. So clearly, OpenAI and Microsoft are leaders. They have, and also besides their GPT-4 quality, is that they're making money with it. Microsoft has included it. Um, they changed the keyboard on their laptops and things to include a Copilot
Right.
thing. So an instant call up of AI. It's so important that they made it in the hardware on the keyboard to do it. And it's in all of their Office software, emails, every product they have. So they monetized it through that. And they also have service and other things. So they are making revenue on it. OpenAI directly, I think, is getting towards $1 billion in revenue just because people are paying $20 a month for better access to GPT-4. But Microsoft including it into their Bing, all their products.
Yeah, this Copilot does seem to be kind of a breakthrough in terms of usability. Um, my professor wife was telling me that she uh, is already using Copilot in trying to take a a lecture, put it in, and have it create the PowerPoint for her.
Right?
The savings on that in terms of prep time for doing lectures would be just absolutely incredible.
Mhm. So Google DeepMind, they're also up there. The new Gemini large language model supposedly, beats GPT-4 by a little bit on all categories. So two things about that. One is Google is also in the game monetizing, so they're putting it into their search and you get your generative AI search results, and then your regular search results, stuff like that. So they're putting it into all their products too. So that whole money flywheel thing on that AI side will keep pushing this thing forward.
Sure.
The other thing is that two different companies have comparable AI. They're close. It's
Yeah.
not that far apart, right? So that shows, and there's also open source versions of things that are like really, really good, where they're, definitely compared with GPT-3, not that far off GPT-4. So there's the question of, people say, will there be only one AI? And it seems like it's a intelligence explosion where you have many, many products that can do things. There's still the value to being the best, right? You
Yeah.
know, number one wins more. Like if their GPTX is better than Gemini 3, right? Then your Professor Wife and other people making their better PowerPoints would want the better one. If it's like clearly the product is different. So then the question is like, how much differential does it plateau where free is as good
Yeah.
as the
Yeah.
competitive source, which was happened in operating systems with Linux being free and then being more useful than Microsoft Windows in some cases, although you would
Hmm.
go the paid version. So there is this perennial IT compute thing of like open source versus versus commercial, and what does that mean in this competition?
Right.
Tesla X and XAI. So Tesla's trying to also build their AI money play. Well, they're trying to do it with Grok. We don't know the financials on Grok. You're paying X premium to get access to it, so they have monetized it. Um, and then Tesla, of course, have the adjacent AI development with Tesla Bot and with FSD. And FSD slash Autopilot is making over $1 billion a year on revenue. But we know, Sam said, and Google's also is coming for the robot side of things. So the competitors are coming. So this was Elon saying their real world AI with FSD and Tesla Bot is easier for them to get to, they've put all this work to make world class to get the data. Tougher for Microsoft and Google to copy and get up to speed because they have to get the data stuff.
Right.
But it won't be because they're short of compute. It won't be because they're short of
Right.
resources. And
Right.
they're going to try and move over some perhaps AGI, human level or better AI thing and embody it. And there's loads of companies working to do that. So also the question of are things hard or are things easy? It seems like if you have a solid team, you can make a really good large language model. You can get in the game because there's Anthropic, there's all these people with it. So then Grok should be competitive. So then it goes, if it's not going to be the AI software side that's differentiating you, the hardware is the manufacturing, is the data, what is it? Or is it just you run it better, you have a better business model,
Right.
which is again plays to Elon's capabilities.
Well, and then on the manufacturing side, obviously, that's huge if we're talking about the hardware application downstream of the bots, whether it's cars, whether it's bipedal, whether it is quadrupedal. I mean, there's a lot of talk now that the new products that Elon was talking about the other day, where he says, I have more new products coming, might be additional form factors of robots that would be applicable for certain circumstances. A lot of people have talked about the top of the body only, the arms only. If you've got a really, really great hand and arm system, why would you need the rest of the body for every application? So there might be lots and lots of products coming out of the Tesla world that would be ancillary to the robot itself.
And basically, I would going to make the argument that it's the creativity around the business plan and the figuring out how to allocate the resources into which products that are the key. That there's a lot of different forms of what this thing could take and would want to take, and one being able to choose the right one
Right.
is something that Elon has shown he can do,
Right.
and to make that path. And we'll discuss that in more detail later on. So who is leading self-driving, quality, and monetization? I say it's only Tesla right now, because all the LiDAR people companies, of which there's several dozen, do not have a business model that monetizes well.
Right.
You know, they say, oh, Waymo's got several hundred robotaxi self-driving cars, no driver in there. Well, one, how much remote joystick control running that vehicle do you have? Where I took the driver, but I have two people joysticking it, remotely, which is what Cruise is doing, right? And the fact that they are only doing like 10,000, 100,000 rides total, which is, or maybe a million rides, which is basically like $1 million, $10 million. So the amount of actual revenue that they're making is tiny. And that's for all of them. And then, if I'm going to get to 100,000 vehicles in 10 cities, which is what Apollo, a Chinese self-driving car, do. They said they'd do that in 4 years, right?
Yeah.
And each car costs $50,000. That's like $5 billion to get to 100,000 vehicles. So they're spending all this cost to get there. And they're basically saying, we will become Uber. So Uber got profit only last year. They have 6 million drivers who brought their own car. They didn't even pay for the cars. And then they pay the driver. Right. And that's 1/3 of their cost is the driver, right? So in order for them to be as big as Uber and finally get to profitability, they need 1 million to 2 million cars. Tesla does have 6 million cars, or 5 million cars on the road, and they all can be FSD. The other guys are saying, I'm going to get to 2 million cars. I'm going to build them all myself. So 2 million cars at $50,000 each.
Right.
That's like, what is it, $100 billion?
Right.
$100 billion to do that, just for the cars. And then I got to roll it all out, deploy it. And then I have to have the ratio support staff to whatever to actually to make that work. So, and then after I spend $100 billion in that final years, then the next year I'll finally be profitable.
So, and at the same time, Uber just made an announcement yesterday in terms of the fact that they're pushing, really, really pushing their Uber drivers to buy Teslas. They're giving them incentives to buy the Teslas. They're telling them that they should be buying Teslas, and that they're planning to be 100% electric by 2030 in their entire fleet. How easy would it be? Even these Uber drivers, they may end up being the richest Uber drivers. They may not be seeing it this way, but at some point they just don't have to go to work anymore, and they're making as much or more money from their car.
That's right. Yeah, they can suddenly do 3 shifts
Right.
instead of one. That's right. So that is how right now it's only Tesla, and then just business model wise, not because LiDAR feasibility, it's just that although there's a problem there too, but just the business model wise, Tesla's the only one this side. And then for the other, OpenAI, Microsoft, Google to come in onto the car side or robotaxi side, it's a big problem because maybe there's comma, comma would be the way to do it, but definitely wouldn't be with the LiDAR people, I think. So then humanoid bot. There's Tesla, there's Sanctuary AI, there's Figure, Digital Robotics, and then dozens of other companies in
Right.
the robot space. Quality and monetization, not yet, right? We don't have the quality yet, and we don't have the monetization yet. Key AI partners. There's AI startups and Anthropic, other people. So there's all kinds of M&A opportunities in here or emergent players. Too complicated, don't know, but we know from my initial analysis is whatever the big player is, they got to access billions, if not tens of billions of dollars. So
Right.
that narrows who can be in the game, or that you have to be a big guy partnered with Saudi or Kuwait or some of the other players. And of course, there's many players in China.
Right. Right. Right.
Nvidia is, of course, supplying the chips, AMD, Samsung, and then there's a bunch of other startups on the chip side of things. And then also Nvidia is making complete systems. Like they made a humanoid robot system that they partnered up with the other people. So they want to provide more than just a chip. They want to provide, a bigger and bigger base platform for people, hardware and software, for,
Right.
for the cars, for the humanoid bots, everything.
Yeah, and I think you could rest on that for just a second. That was a pretty major announcement last week that Nvidia made that they're partnering. I think the list might have been 8 or 10 different companies,
Right.
and that they are basically giving them the operating system from top to bottom, on a chip, which is going to be huge for companies like Figure that don't have anything like that capacity internally.
Right, right. And also the testing systems, they're giving them the whole stack.
Right.
So big money is important for AI bots. So you need to have the money, you need to have the scale, because it's not just can I get to 10,000 working bots like Agility Robotics is doing, right? That's nice, but even in our most optimistic cases of $100,000 of value per year of those bots, 10,000 bots with $100,000 of value is only $1 billion, right? Only $1 billion. It's nice
Yes.
for a startup, right? But the world-changing stuff that Elon's talking about, that Sam Altman's talking about, we're talking about 1 billion bots, right? You got to get to billions and billions of bots, right? That's down the road. You got your plan needs to get there. That's where the competition is going to be going. And then Meta, Amazon has about 1 million of these industrial Roombas that move their shelves so they can, do their warehouse supply chain. And then Apple will get in there. They just again have not. The fact that the Apple kind of sat on their hands and the rumor kept being that they would do a self-driving car or
Right.
get to anything, and they never did, does not bode well for them also making the move on human bot. Supposedly they're going to announce some stuff with the large language model, or they already did, whatever, and they're going to incorporate that into all of their apps because clearly, they have their app store has a target on it where
Yeah.
OpenAI and Microsoft is saying, ooh, I want your replace all your apps with AI.
And
So then,
Amazon just announced yesterday that they now have a large language model working in the store online. So you will be able to go in and ask questions about your purchase and get the LLM to respond back in terms of larger, smaller. Is there a problem with the color? Et cetera, et cetera. As opposed to reading all the reviews and reading all the data, you can just ask the questions that are pertinent to you and get answers back. I think that's going to be huge.
right. And it goes to that Amazon, if they have their genie and they wish it, right? They want to, one, do what you're saying, replace the e-commerce thing with an AI that directly converts them. And then if they had humanoid bot and they had the factories,
Right.
they'd be making the products. Because right now, Amazon is the front for the entire supply chain.
Right.
Like all these products, your previous water bottle, other things like that, coming through, made by many other peoples, and then also a bunch of middlemen in between that are marketing and promoting, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna buy products off of Alibaba or other places, and they can resell it. And then there's a lot of layers, which is margin from Amazon.
Right.
So they have some of their own products, and they would want to expand that. Same thing for Temu and everyone else, where you can again transform your thing. But again, it's like, what is the genie that I wish for that would give me trillions of dollars? It would be for Microsoft replacing Apple, replacing Google. For Google, it's replacing
Right.
Amazon, replacing Microsoft. They all want to take each other out.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
China, Kuwait. So we know Kuwait's going to go for this $100 billion thing. China has announced they're going for humanoid bot. China can spend trillions, and not just the chip side of things, because as you get 5 years into this thing, you may need a terawatt of power.
Right.
And China is the one that can get a terawatt of power. Maybe Tesla needs to get to a terawatt of power by using all the solar megapacks and everything else. So in the master plan 3, they talk about terawatt of power just for the replacing the world in place.
Right.
Replace the world in place. But if the world changes and it needs 10 times more power, and AI is the thing that's more profitable, then master plan 4 is to provide all the power for the new world, not just the old world.
Right.
So Figure AI also learned with all neural nets. They did the copy thing. Tesla Bot did a clothes folding thing, although apparently with some level of teleoperation. But I think that that's going to convert. There needs to be a new Dojo chip. The Dojo chip was announced a year and a half ago. The main problem is this 15 kilowatts of power to do 9 petawatts in a tile. So your tile with 25 D1 chips is 9 petawatts in the tile, but it needs 15 gigawatts. So then if let's just round off to 10 petaflops, if I need 1 million chips to go to 10 zettaflops, I need 15 gigawatts.
Yeah.
So that's too much power. And Nvidia is doing a chip every 6 months. You can't be doing a chip every year and a half, 2 years. You have to step it up, right? Otherwise,
and we don't know if they have, Tesla is generally noted for their continuous improvement. So it may be that they're not announcing a new chip every 6 months, but rather they're just integrating those changes into the chip immediately as they go along.
It's also the design stream may not be up to snuff yet.
Yeah.
But they have to they may design one, but maybe their cadence, because Nvidia only just stepped up to one every 6 months. They were doing it like once a year, whatever.
Right.
It took time and all the resources to get to once every 6 months, right? So, but Tesla has the advantage that their chips are designed more simply. So they should be able to get to a D2, a D3 chip. They'll have to at least, I would think, get to once a year, right? And they're definitely overdue for a D2. So just by deduction, they have to do it just at least to get the power down. Right. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to use it. So this was some open source thing done by 3 Stanford students, just showing again that the people who think it's going to be too hard to do this, they're doing stuff like putting dishes into dishwashers, doing all this kind of stuff. It seems like it's not that hard. It seems like it's doable based on the data evidence of more and more companies doing more and more things.
Right.
So just like large language models, we thought, getting a human level thing, it's gonna be too hard. It's gonna take decades, and then suddenly, oh no, we did it last week. And we're going to get another one out this week and to be better than human expert. We beat average humans, now we beat human experts, which is what in the AI stuff we saw with chess and with Go. And oh, it's impossible, it's possible, and then we just beat the guy, and now we crush it.
Right. Right.
We it's taken decades to get to we almost get a competitive Go game. We're a joke, and now we beat them, and now we beat everyone, right? It's the same kind of thing. Whereas like for AI, it's like for a long time, it seems like it's not getting there, and then suddenly, whoosh, it gets there. So I think it's the same.
And a lot of these lab experiments, a lot of these things that we're seeing on these videos recently are truly, I think, where the engineers, the scientists in the lab are saying, we need to be able to pick up an egg to prove, capacity. We need to be able to make a 3-course meal in order to prove that it can cook. I mean, these are complex moves. These are complex efforts. And they're showing extremely complex things where, as a factory owner, I can tell you that most of the jobs I need for that bot are not that complex.
Right.
They're pretty easy jobs to do. They're very repetitive. They're very boring. They're not complex at all. And the bot, as it was a year ago, I believe could have already been doing it. So we're seeing highly complex tasks. I think more almost, as you've sometimes called it, a parlor trick, to prove that they're really, really doing cool stuff, which is, not surprising when you've got scientists in a lab, but there's a reality to what the application is, which is so much simpler than what we're seeing.
Which is why we want to give Elon more control so he does all the products here.
Right.
Is because he, even better than you or I, knows here's what is the super valuable thing. He will be able to step through it to say, oh yeah, here's the diamond, here's the ruby. We need to do these things. Okay, test the human bot is one, and then there's other ones that he clearly knows. Oh yeah, we do these, the range, and then he's going from, and then how he does the monetization of the large language model. It's the technology side of things, but it's also the business general.
Right.
That he's the general who's saying, these 1,000 troops take this thing,
right.
These 100 guys take this one, and he's the Napoleon.
Right. Right.
Without the Waterloo.
Yes, of course. Yes, please leave out the Waterloo.
where he doesn't lose. Right. Okay, and this was just showing that 50 training examples, got to 90% efficiency from off-the-shelf parts from 3 Stanford students. And then, you can get to 100% on all these tasks. And then the large language models, it's going to large behavioral models. Again, talk about the scaling laws. Scaling laws mean that they figured out how to make it better if you just put more resources into it. So that was the key aspect of how we got ChatGPT, was that a few years before, Baidu put out a paper saying these large language models just get better and better. If we put 10 times more chips onto it and whatever, then we get 5% more improvement.
Right.
Then it was, they knew it. It wasn't the discovery by Google. It wasn't the discovery by OpenAI and Microsoft. It was them looking at that paper and saying, doing the Silicon Valley thing of like, oh, if I put $10 billion into this thing, I'm going to get human level AI. I'm going to go.
Right.
It's the willingness to see scaling laws and being able to put billions of dollars behind it, which they do for self-driving, for everything. But they're willing to just like, I'm willing to go for it. And if there's scaling laws on the robot side, then it's gonna. So then there was some totem orders. So there is a Stern-Basher analysis, right? He's actually one of the Tesla community who analyzed the value of the different areas that Tesla has. And of course, everyone knows that if you get robotaxi to work, you have $10 trillion. ARK Invest said that. If you get a human bot to work, by 2030, you can make $20 trillion, maybe $100 trillion, maybe 2035, or something like that. So it's just huge. And you put like 10% probability on that thing, right? So the 10% probability. So the value then, so people on the analysis side, I'm going to put a price tag on future Tesla, and I got to cut because it gets too valuable if Tesla bot works. I have to say, oh, it's only 10% probability. So then
Right.
it's only worth $2 trillion or $1 trillion in my valuation case, where if the stock price goes to $5,000 a share, right? So that's one way to do it. But if you flip it over and say, I'm Elon Musk, I'm the Tesla team. I know robotaxi, if I make it work, is $10 trillion. If I make at the robotaxi level, and then if I make humanoid bot work, it's worth $100 trillion, right? And it's right now at 10%. The management, the value of Elon and the team is to up that 10% to 100%.
Right.
Right? So if you up it to 100%, and if it takes resources, instead of doing a $20 billion cash stock buyback,
Right.
I put $20 billion to up my probability of Tesla bot
Yeah.
and Dojo and Robotaxi from 10% to 80%, right? That's totally worth it. Okay, as it increased 70% chance, I make $10 trillion or
Right.
$100 trillion, right? So the other thing is that people look at Robotaxi as the one thing. But if you break it up, there was driver assist, autopilot, a product that made money early.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got FSD, a product that wasn't quite perfected, a version of it that made money early, profitable, right? And that's the genius of Elon Musk, is to say, yes, I'm going for robotaxi, but I'm going to do these sub levels where I can say, if I get to this, a driver assist level, that's worth $1 billion to me and value to the customer.
Right.
If I get to FSD, highway only, some streets, limitations, that is worth $5 billion, $10 billion. We're not quite there yet, but we get out of beta, we get to $5 billion, $10 billion, right? And we get the adoption rate over in China. So then a humanoid bot, I get it working for everything at $100 trillion. But if I get it working in my factories with digital self-management, everything designed to make it work and make it easy, that to me, to Tesla, is worth $1 trillion, right? If I get it, these other things working, again, narrow use cases of, if I get this use case nailed, it's also worth $1 trillion or $5 trillion. And I get that to 100%. I do it early, right? So being able to lay the path and say, I'm going to work back and figure out not the whole thing, but key things that give me more capability and power and finances to get the flywheel going.
Right.
Where I'm not just the data and the compute and the energy, but all of the power. But if they make the chips D3, D4, and then they make 1 million of them, then I use half for me and half for a cloud computing thing. If I make the make the chips themselves, I could even just sell straight chips, right?
Right.
So there's all kinds of monetization, all kinds of products all along the way that they could choose to do. Maybe they decide don't want to bother with that, it's a distraction. That again is a choice that the master CEO would make, to say a distraction toward the goal of 10 trillion, $100 trillion. Another company who might want to focus up and say, okay, I'm a startup, I gotta do this one to make $100 billion, but it's going to delay me 6 months, a year to the longer term goal. If it's all in, where Microsoft, whatever, then and Tesla and Google are in it, then they can say, okay, no, I need to drive to this one and this one. That's it. This one, and to know when to go for the other products and how, when and how.
Right. So let me see if I can encapsulate this just a little bit. So in a traditional product categories, you're commonly looking and saying, who is the competition that I have to beat? In these particular cases, in the short term, we don't probably have to beat any. When I say we, Tesla doesn't have to beat any competition. What they have to do is they have to produce a compelling product at a compelling price, compelling services at a compelling price, in order to be in the game. They have to be doing something that somebody wants because the TAM is so huge on all of it, whether it's the compute, whether it is the robots, whether it's full self-driving, whether it is some kind of dojo as a service, chat GPT, Grok, which is of course over on X. All of these things, there's a massive opportunity out there, and there's going to be lots of winners. Long term, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, yeah, there may be a market fallout depending on who's ahead and who's behind, but it's probably going to be Tesla in the lead. And then we can shift the thinking at that point over to what is the cost of entry? And you went clearly and showed the cost of entry is too high for almost anybody. There's only a few players, the Kuwaitis and I mean, they can bring in their money and they can buy the companies that can do this kind of stuff. But basically, it's going to cost tens, if not hundreds of $1 billions to even be a player in a lot of these categories. That's the initial investment, kind of like going to space. It's really hard to be a player unless you're already a player. You have to be really big to contemplate even getting bigger. So, and for these guys that are really big already, hitting that $1 trillion number is kind of a fun thing for them to contemplate. But then downstream, let's again take it 3 years out. When we get to that point, who are the winners and losers going to be? There's only one company that is doing the data collection. They're doing the compute themselves with their own chips and their own data centers. They're doing their own hardware in terms of the hardware around all of that. They're doing they have their own factories. They're maybe the most efficient user of capital in history in terms of factory creation and then actually making the products, whether it's cars or anything else that they've done. So they have the capacity to then make the bot, make the whatever it happens to be that's going to, the cars, et cetera, they're going to utilize all of this information. So with that kind of verticality in their business model, they're going to be very hard to beat when the competition does get stiff. Does that summarize what you said?
That's summarized what I said, but I'm going to make, and I know I'm stacking on a lot more things.
Yes.
There are three other factors to this. One is to look at the example of Starlink for SpaceX.
Right.
SpaceX was doing 20 launches a year. That was all the commercial launches practically available to them. So there were a bunch of other launches, but there was like Russian military, Chinese military. You're not going to get those launches, right? The 20 launches. But they went to nearly 100 this year. Right. Why? Because they got 80 launches for Starlink, right? Launching their own satellites, making their own satellites, and then making more money. So they use their own service in order to speed up both. It's for to speed up the launch capability and lower the cost of launch capability, and also make factories for satellites and to make factories for Starlink.
For the rockets, yeah.
Rockets, right. So they made the whole industry bigger than anything else by being their own customer and then making a monetization model off of that. So that's, again, the same thing to be done with humanoid bot. If the rest of the world is not ready to use a humanoid bot, their companies are.
Yes.
The other thing is that Elon does have 54% of SpaceX. Yes. He has that capability. So if we imagine right now he has over half of all the satellites up there, when he's going to launch 150 launches this year, he'll get to like 80% or whatever of all the satellites up there. When he gets the Starship fully reusable and working, 10 times the capacity of Falcon 9, 10 times the launch rate, he will then be able to put up all the satellites that he wants. It will be 100x the capability of the current system. It will be 20% of all communications. He just announced a smaller Starlink version, which would be like the size of a laptop screen, right? Which is smaller, lower power, versus the bigger one, lower power. I think $200 instead of like $500, right? It can go into a backpack to keep high bandwidth communication to wherever you want to go. So where could you
And just announced by far the fastest communication system ever
right.
in terms of communicating between computers uh, on a level that was astronomically higher than anything that's ever been done and cost, what was it?
$75,000 a month
A month. Yeah.
for a 10 gigabit per second communication link. So, like better than most of the best fiber out there, communication link to go anywhere. But the interesting one for me is the backpack one. The other one's good. Again, they show the range.
Right. Right.
It is the backpack one that could be stuck onto the back of a Tesla bot.
Oh, yeah.
That can go into many of the Tesla vehicles.
Yes.
So we could have high bandwidth communication to all of these things. So if you needed your system to have, I don't know, super accurate GPS, if you need high bandwidth communication on this thing, so that, I got it working in the lab. But for Tesla, SpaceX, the entire world is my lab because I always have location, I always have energy, I always have, GPS communication, stuff like that. So then he meshes it all together because he's not just an ordinary entrepreneur with just a car company, right? He is a guy with a space company that will have a virtual monopoly on space, all the satellite capability. And he also has an energy company where he can roll out batteries and solar faster than anyone else. He hasn't unleashed the Kraken on that yet, but he will unleash the Kraken of energy and unleash the Kraken on space. So that means, yes, he's got this ordinary competition where he and Bill Gates and Sam Altman are fighting, but then he goes over the top
Yeah.
with space and with energy, so that, okay, we're just like his competition with BYD. Yeah, we're competing, and then I go next level, and then leave, right? There's multiple ways he goes next level, and now I win, right? Oh, I'm competing with X and Twitter. I only got 500 million people, and then I make it into a PayPal, WeChat money app, and I take over banking and finance, and I left that behind, right? It's still there, but I've also gone next level. Oh, if I do that, that might help my SpaceX stuff, my Tesla stuff as well.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yes. Well, Brian, I think you've made the case.
Yes, thank you.
And I think I hope everybody enjoyed hearing the case being made and just getting a flavor for what the next big future might look like. And of course, you might be watching this on Next Big Future. If you haven't gone to nextbigfuture.com, you should do that. The science blog that is the Elon Musk. If Elon Musk was going to do a science blog, it would be called Next Big Future, and it would be done the way that Brian does that blog. So if you haven't been there yet, you need to be there because, after all, it is the biggest science blog, the most visited science blog in the known universe. So you want to visit there. You want to join. You want to maybe support Brian and support me on Patreon. That's easy enough to do. You can find. Hope maybe that information will even be below in the description. And then I have a channel too. And maybe you're watching some of this on my channel because we were thinking it might show up on different channels. So, Brian, as always, it's fascinating. I'm so glad that I was here.
Thank you, Randy.
And,
Forward to it.
all right. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.